St. John here. How are you doing?
Oh, Nelly, I'm ready for today.
It's a big one.
So first, we just want to thank you guys for your outpouring support. That's a word. Yeah, outpouring. My words are fumbled today, so deal with it, guys. Your support when it comes to this podcast. We've only launched, we're recording this, and previously we've launched a few weeks before, and there's been so many wonderful people in our world or who have been brought into our world. And we just want to say thank you, because this feels really exciting and fun. Like, I'm finding myself really gravitating towards making this thing huge because it's so fun. And I know when we do stuff in our life that, we're moving towards, it's exciting and it's great. And I know the conversation today is going to hit people totally different than any other conversation that we've had. And before Nicole kind of does a little introduction, I do want to say that the best part of this podcast is that Nicole and I are so different, and we bring different perspectives. We bring different words, we bring different energy. And I hope that if anything, if you're listening to this, that you understand your voice and your energy and just who you are is absolutely perfect. And that the world needs you. The world needs all different types of people with all different types of voices. And I think when Nicole and I decided to do this venture together, it felt really exciting because Nicole is and does life a lot different than I do. And she's going to share a little bit today about her life that feels a little vulnerable to talk about. And it's something that she hasn't really been mainstream with, but through some different circumstances this week, we decided this was a good conversation to have because there are a lot of people out there that are all different. And so today we're bringing a different perspective. So,
yes. Okay. So a little backstory, I guess, on today. Last night I was talking with my mom and she asked me about one of the podcasts that we've recorded, and one that I had told her I was a little nervous about us releasing it. So she asked me last night, so how do you feel about it now? And I said, I'm not as worried about the fact that I am such an open book that I felt like I overshared, but that I was more concerned with the fact that I feel like maybe I didn't answer the question very well. And I said, I really want to be authentic on this. That's one of like my superpowers, I feel like, is just this open book authenticity. But I also still want to be able to answer the questions. I don't want to go so far left, but the ADHD that I have, and it is real. It's not like an aesthetic. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 42 years old, and I've struggled with it my whole life. I am not medicated because the medications did not agree with me. They did help my mind, but they did not agree with me in other ways. So I had to weigh the good with the bad and just not be on them. This conversation was born. I messaged Anna last night and just kind of said what was on my mind. And, I said, we don't need to talk about this today, but we could talk about it at some point. In having ADHD, I find that often I'm trying to simultaneously have these two polarities of trying to have grace with myself and meet myself where I am and say, you know what, Nicole, it's okay because you have ADHD and your mind doesn't work the same as other people's. And that's okay. And you just have to be where you are and have grace in that, like, stop comparing yourself to everybody else and holding yourself to this other standard of all of these people. I mean, I could rattle off like 7 women in my mind right now that I think are just spectacular specimens of motherhood, businesshood, all things Pinteresty and, kicking ass at their life. I mean, and I know that that's how it appears. And I know that everybody has their own struggles, but it's hard not to do that. It's hard not to sit there and judge myself and say, why the hell am I failing at this? Like, why does it feel like every day I am failing at this? It's like being a mom, being a wife, like keeping house, simultaneously telling myself, Nicole, you don't get to just act like it's fine and just have that much grace with yourself that you don't try to change. So it's this duality.
It's like a fight back and forth in your head.
It's constant. And there's a whole nother aspect to it that it's really heartbreaking and embarrassing. And I'm going to share it because it's real. And it's something that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with that no one talks about. Yes, it's being able to manage my time well. It's managing, my household. It's also hygiene. Hygiene is a huge thing. And I have to put up notices and set alarms because I forget to eat and I forget to brush my teeth. So now I've made this thing where every morning, whenever I tell my son, get ready to get in the car so I can take you to school, I go as soon as I tell him and I go and I brush my teeth because I realize I'm going to sit in the same cab of the truck as this man, and I'm going to smell a hot mess. So I want to go brush my teeth. And I know that this is, you're like probably on here going, oh my God. And I don't want to be judged, but I'm just being honest. Like, it's so many different things that make me feel like I'm failing. And then you add in the business aspect of trying to be
a certain way,
because like,
Yep.
I want my business to flow because that makes it easier for me to show up and just do what I love and just do what I love and be on 100% for my clients. Then it comes to homeschooling, and like, I'm struggling. Like, if I'm being honest, I'm really struggling with all of it. And if I turned this camera around right now and you saw my office, you would be like, girl, it gets to a point where I'm like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know what to do, where to start. And just really trying to manage this and having the struggles that I've had with it and feeling completely inadequate. And some of you will know, and some of you are new or don't know me in real life. But I worked in the ER for 6 years, and I had people ask me, oh, why did you go to the ER? Like, why did you go to the ER from, these other floors? And it was because that's where my ADHD was managed. Like, I could hide it. I could totally hide it. And
now you can't.
And I can't. And I feel like, there's a beauty in having ADHD, that you can hyper focus. Whenever you are on, and you can hyper focus on this thing. But there's a whole other aspect of it that you completely forget, things like eating. You're so hyper focused that you forget, oh, wait, where are my children? Did I do the thing for my business? Here, I had to write this whole list yesterday of things that I needed to do, and I haven't got to any of them yet. Not because I don't want to, but because I just haven't. It's just managing.
Well, and Nicole, I love that we're having this conversation today, because even though you feel so isolated right now with this, and that, it's feeling like a struggle, and it's feeling like, I can tell in your tone and your voice when you're sharing right now, you don't understand, or you don't know, or that anyone on the other end doesn't know, is that we all have this. Like, we may not have ADHD, but like, I know for myself, when you're sharing right now, I'm like, oh no, that's me. Oh no. And I'm one other extreme. Like, I'm the extreme of, I don't know how to quite define it, but I've always been like overachiever, like achiever kind of a mindset. And when you get to that point of where I am, and I'm more of an extreme person, like, I've had to really dial back and like really, really soul search on, who am I doing this for? Is this my ego, or is this for God? And I ask myself that with every single thing I do now. I become very hyper focused on achieving, on checking the list off, on getting the things done. Nicole and I had this great conversation yesterday through Marco Polo about this conversation. And I was saying, Nicole, you know what? Like, my entire life, up until right when I turned 40, which was about a year and a half ago, I can't even calculate, a while ago, 2 years ago, I would go as hard as I could, and I will outwork anyone. I have no problem saying that, but at what cost? Like, at what cost was I willing to do this like hardcore work? I mean, and let me give you some examples. It could be yard work. I'll work a 14-hour day in my yard because I have to get it done. It has to be done. Like, I have to get it done, right? That's compulsive. Like, that's ridiculous. Or like, I get really excited on a project, or I get really excited for something that I'm working on, and it's like that achiever mode I go into, and I'm like, I can't finish until I'm done, like, which is super exciting when you're younger and our bodies can handle it and our minds are like on fire. But as we start to get older, like, that turns into burnout, that turns into anxiety, depression, panic attacks, like, all of that stuff starts manifesting when you push your body that hard. Or weight gain, like, right? Or you just eat whatever, or you do whatever in order to achieve, right? And I kind of sound like a crazy person right now at the level, but when I actually really think back to my life on, my early adolescent all the way through even most present, it's been that mentality. And I think especially as women, my mom reminds me of this a lot, and I know I mentioned this in another podcast, is that when my mom raised me, like, it was, my mom worked, but she raised her children, right? There wasn't like PTA, there wasn't Pinterest, there wasn't social media, there wasn't, all these crazy entrepreneurial endeavors. There wasn't like the perfect decorated house. Like, there was like raising your children to be good humans and to be kind. And there wasn't all this complication that there is now for us, for women, I think in general. I'm speaking of men also, but I think mostly for women, there's this pressure that we have to be, and we have to do things a certain way. And I loved Nicole and I talking last night, because even though she's sharing her heart right now and she's sharing where she's at with, you know, what she's got going on in her life, like mine just looks a little different, you know, but it's the same type of a struggle. Like it's that same, where this rat race, like over and over and over. And it's like, that's not normal. That's not healthy. And can we please have more conversations how it's not healthy? Can we please have more conversations about how, like, it's okay to have a you day? I had one of those yesterday. I got a massage, I got a facial. It was a Monday. I went to something that I do called soul care. Like, I mean, I just didn't give a crud. I was like, today's my day. Yeah. And I have no guilt. And it should be that way. You know, it should be okay for that. I love this. If you're on YouTube right now, please tune in. If you're not on YouTube, really go to our YouTube channel and watch this. Because Nicole is beating the shit out of a fly right now. We're in the middle of our podcast.
No one told me when I moved here that when they got rid of the dairies, the flies didn't go with them. Okay.
No, you live in Oakdale. That's not happening. You got the
Jesus. Okay. What was I saying?
How you were running in the ER and
yeah.
Okay, so Nicole, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
So how has comparison, we've been talking a lot, the conversation has been a lot about our different versions of comparison, but how has that affected not only your work life, but your business relationships and any other relationship in your life, maybe on social media or maybe just in person? How has that affected?
Having spent the last 6 years in the in the ER, working more than I was socializing, it adversely affected it because I didn't think anybody could notice, and they did. They noticed. And I would literally, people would ask me, God, why do you always have such a busy group? Because I would always be like running everywhere. And it was because my time was so mismanaged that I was just frantic all the time. I mean, total fight or flight all day long. And then I would come home and I would have nothing left to give. And my house would be a mess. Dinner would, like, my husband says, honey, I love it whenever you cook dinner, but whenever you do, it looks like a tornado has hit this place. Like every cabinet is open. The mess is still everywhere. Like, and then I don't know where to start. You know, I try to start doing one task and I get distracted. It's literally, Chalene Johnson has got the best video on this on Instagram. If you don't know who she is, go check her out. There's a video that she does on ADHD, and she's going through her day of like how she saw this, she went into her closet and saw that this, you know, thing was messed up, and oh, why do I have 2 of these? And then I'm going to go wash this one because it should be white. And then she made her way down to the laundry room, and you know, we need more of this. And so she went somewhere else, and she makes this whole lap around her house, never having gotten done with the first task she tried because she got distracted by everything along the way. And then you throw in homeschool, kids, TikTok, and it's just like there's like not enough. There are not enough tools in my tool bag. I've got the lists. I've got the notebooks. Girl, if I showed you how many notebooks I bought that are only halfway filled out because I couldn't find the damn notebook, so I had to go get another one to start filling out. So it's like sections of my life are in all of these, like, and then I'll find the next one because I've lost that one, I've misplaced it. So doing all of that, and then my poor husband, he's not the most understanding when it comes to ADHD, and I've had to have a real serious conversation with him. And I will say, while I mentioned earlier about the hygiene, it's something that when I finally did discuss it with him over the last year, he has not noticed this in the last 12 years. He's never noticed that like I was funky, you know what I mean? So I'm glad that like, clearly I didn't let it get bad enough for it to be noticeable, but I noticed, like I knew. So anyhow, you know, he kind of had a look of shock whenever I explained this all to him. I was like, this is how my mind works, and this is how it's hard. And you judging me because the laundry isn't done or the house isn't cleaned, but I've managed to do all of these other things. Like, I can't deal with the judgment. It's adversely affecting me, and it's just making me more sad and feel like I'm more of a loser. And I don't want to feel like that. Like, I'm great at what I'm great at, and what I'm not, I struggle at. But, you know, I've got 75 different hobbies. 75, I've got more interest than anybody that I know. Keeping on track with them is very difficult, and managing my time has been the hardest thing for me. And I recently watched a video from a guy on YouTube that is a doctor, and explained ADHD in the most profound way that I felt so seen and so heard. And it really makes me like kind of want to cry a little bit. But he said it's not laziness. ADHD is not a disease of laziness. It is executive function. It's a disease of the executive dysfunction that makes it to where you aren't able to do the things in the order that most people would be.
I love this conversation with Nicole because I actually married someone who suffers from severe ADHD. Like, whew, he makes Nicole look like, like mellow cello. And I've learned as someone who doesn't have the same struggles, I've learned, especially in the beginning parts of our marriage, like how to make all this work. And I used to think it was just a thing that he said, like, oh, I have ADD or I have ADHD, whatever. And I thought it was an excuse, right? And then when I started like really, there was this day after I got to share this real quick. We just had our first baby, first daughter, and I was like frantic. I was like, oh my God, this is so hard. Motherhood was hard for me in the very beginning. And I was online because like, that's what you do because you have a new baby and you're just like scrolling, doing your thing, watching TV. Like, at least that's what I did because I was trying to figure this thing out. And I'm scrolling through and I'm like, oh, wow, weird. It's like an ADHD, like evaluator kind of a thing. And you look and you see if you're a test, right? So of course I took it and I'm like, no, definitely not. And then I'm reading the like key factors and I'm like, oh my God, that's my husband. Not even like every single one of them. And then I started to get like really into it and started reading about it and thought like, oh, wow, like, wow, all these fights that I've had. Cause you could imagine like someone like Nicole and someone like me who are totally opposite in the way that we do life, in the way that we wake up in the morning, and the way that we function, and the way that we take care of our kid. Like all that's different.
Yeah.
Like I'm married to someone like that. He's definitely a little more extreme though, if I'm being honest, Nicole. And when you share these things, I smile because I think the hygiene thing, and it's not even that he, means to, he just like, oh shoot, I forgot. Or like the running business or taking care, like helping with the house or so this is even more amusing. He was a stay-at-home dad or stayed with our children for the first 7 years of their life. And so me being a crazy type A person and think of that extreme version coming home after working and then like coming in the door and you guys, my house was like, no. It's like undescribable. Like people would come over and he didn't care. He was like, my kids are having a great time. Like their lives are amazing right now. And my kids got to be kids. And I can't imagine how differently raised they would be if I was the one at home. And not saying that I'm a bad mom. I'm just saying like, I'm just so much different. He's so fun and he does a lot of different activities. And he's just like, let's start all this. Let's bake and let's watch a movie and let's play with this toy. And then let's go let's go skateboard. And like all of these things, right? So I'd come home and see like exactly what he'd done all day. And I'm like, oh, sweet Lord, I got to clean all this up. And instead of seeing the positive, of it, of like, my kids just had a freaking epic day. There's no way I could have given an epic day like that. Instead, I saw, oh my God, look at the messes that he made. Oh my gosh, this is going to take me tons of time. Like it was a very negative thing for the first few years of our marriage. And then finally I got to the point where I was like, oh no, you know what? Like now that my kids are older, I see his raising of them in the beginning. I see that time he spent and I'm so thankful because they are easy to be adapted into new climates. They have fun playing with all different types of kids. They have the basic principles of like life down, and they're just so creative and they love themselves and they just think they're hot shit, And I think to myself, like how amazing that now my daughters are 11 and 12 years old and they have such a great background. And it was because my husband, I mean, I bring greatness to the relationship and greatness to the parenting, but it was because he let them paint and get dirty. He let them go outside and play in the mud, like in the mud, y'all. Like there was
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So it's like, on one hand, we are so hard on ourselves for doing something a different way. And I think that's just like the theme of today is like, we don't have to be so hard on ourselves. The conversation Nicole and I had last night too was wonderful because it was like, you know what? We can do things totally different and still get the same result.
Yeah. And I can still have the idea of growth and evolution over my lifetime and growing as a person and pouring into myself, and still have some grace with myself with regards to, I wish there was another word for limitations, because I don't know what the other word would be, but that's what it feels like. It feels like limitations as to how my brain works and what I'm capable of holding energetically with regards to task initiation and time management. So I think that there's room for both, to have some grace, to be kind with myself, and to not allow the negative self-talk and the comparison to happen.
I got to jump in, Nicole. I got to, because you said this last night and I got to share this. And I want to ask you this. So you mentioned something last night about how we always want to change ourselves. We seek all of these different ways to change ourselves. And you said something so brilliant on the Marco last night. You were like, hey, you know what? Like, I don't have to change myself. I can just learn to adapt and evolve, but we don't have to do this massive uproar of a change, right? Will you speak into that, because it's all around us right now that we have to buy this thing or be this person or work out this way or change. We have to constantly personally develop and change. And it's just like feels so much work. And why are we changing? For who? For what? Like, speak into change.
Oh God. So I think that change is important. I think that growth, sorry, not change, growth. I think growth is important. I don't think that we should be the same person at 45 that we were at 15. Okay. Like, that's growth. I do think that we should be happy with who we are at our core. Like, I love the positive things that ADHD has brought to my life. The goofy, playful, I love all kinds of different things. I'm never really bored. The creativity flows in ways that I don't think I would have the level of creativity in my mind. It comes in and it's like this. It was like last night whenever I messaged you on the Marco. I'm like, I saw myself and I could feel myself doing it. It was like I was in this place in my mind where it was just flowing. I wasn't thinking about it. It was just like flowing out. And I knew the second that I tried to write it down and remember what it was, I was losing it. That's why I got on the Marco app with you. So I do think that change is maybe not the right word. I don't think people should change who they are. I think that we should grow as people, grow in our kindness and our empathy and compassion and just being good humans. I think that the way that we work, we like ask yourself, am I comparing myself? Do I feel bad about where I'm at because I'm comparing with someone else, or because I know I can do better? Like, I think that those are a different thing. I know there's times when I'm not putting my best foot forward, and that's on me. I'm not putting my best foot forward and I'm a little disappointed in myself because I know that I can do better, and I'm doing myself a disservice and I'm not being true to myself whenever I'm not doing those things. Whereas I feel like shit because I see Anna being over here epic every day in her life, and now I'm going to compare myself to her in all of these other ways, knowing that we don't work the same, knowing that we don't think that, like, we are so different. And that's what I love about us. I think that we complement each other. And clearly you love people who have ADHD, or you wouldn't have married one and gone into a podcast with another. So you're just glutton for punishment.
They're all around me.
Because what was the thing? Okay. What was the thing the other day that, we all have our puzzle pieces and they're all put in together, and you've got some pieces for me and I've got some pieces for you.
Yep. Yes. And we need both of, we need both.
We need each other's pieces.
So. I want to just recap on something really powerful you just said. Like, this is how you can evaluate if it's a healthy comparison or unhealthy, is that if you're comparing yourself to like your best self and you're realizing like, wow, I am really not showing up how God created me to be, or like what's in my soul. I am like halfway doing things, right?
Yeah.
And then you get upset with yourself, right? Because you're like, no, I am made of more. Like, I can do this, dude. I am created wonderfully, right?
Yeah.
Or the comparison, the negative comparison, is comparing yourself to someone else and their progress and the way they do life and how they look and what they perform and what they achieve. That's a totally unhealthy comparison.
Yeah. Especially when I'm at 2 years of business, just barely, very brand new to this. You have been building businesses for how many years? I mean,
a long time. Yeah.
Like a lot of years. It would be foolish of me to compare. It would be foolish of me to compare myself with this other person who's doing so great in their marriage and they're doing X, Y, and Z over here, but they've, like, I don't know their whole story. They've been married
Yes.
far longer. They've worked out all those kinks. Like the parenting thing, yeah, they've been doing the homeschooling for the last 18 years. And I'm comparing with how easy it comes to them for their now new kid that they had. Like, no, like, stop it. And even the mom that seems like we're on the same level. I don't know her story. I don't know her background. And those things do affect people, and they affect the way that we work, and they affect the way that our minds work, and the way that we show up, and the way we do things, the way we do life.
The cool thing, Nicole, that I love about this too, is that when you get to that level where you're no longer comparing yourself against other people, you can get into the arena, or you can get into sit at the table, or whatever analogy you want to use, with people that are of a higher caliber than you, and you can hold your own. And what I mean by that is the more that you know yourself, the more that you know your gifts, you know what you bring to the table. And you know that it doesn't matter if you're sitting across from a multi-billionaire, you have full strength, that even though you're barely making 100,000, like, you have something to contribute at that shared table. And so if anything from this podcast, I hope that if you're listening to this, that you understand and know, and you feel inspired to, like, surround yourself with people that are at a higher caliber, or that have different skill sets than you do. Because, it's the puzzle analogy, dude. Like, you hold pieces, she holds pieces, and together we get to, like, create something really beautiful. And I think for my own personal journey, I've always tried to put myself in rooms where I'm like the dumbest person in the room, dude. If I'm being honest, I want to be around people who, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, like, I want to be around people who are doing totally different things than me. And it's so cool. Even, for instance, I'm going to give you an example. This is just cheesy, but this happened this weekend, where I was, we helped to launch a church, and there's like these 20 somethings, and there's this group of them. And I am in love with these kids. Like, I'm way over half their age. And yet I'm sitting at the dinner table with them, because I am like, dude, your conversations are so epic right now. They're so fun. Like, there's so much energy behind it. Right. And so for me, I just felt like a kid in a candy shop, because I was like, oh my gosh, I get to sit at this table with these kids, or these, these young adults, and they have so much more wisdom and insight on, some of the topics we were talking about. And I'm like, that's fueling me up. And so for me, it's like, I want to sit at those places where I don't fit in. And I think, if anything, like, that's the most powerful thing we can do, is surround ourselves with people where we don't fit in. We don't look the same. We don't talk the same. We have different political beliefs, like, whatever it is, sit down with those people, because that's where your true change and evolution happens. Like, that's where it happens.
Yeah. I like to add that for those of you who are neurodivergent in some way, shape, or form, do not sit with people who make you feel like your explanation is an excuse.
Exactly.
An excuse, and you don't owe them shit of an explanation. You are how you are, and that's okay. And you don't have to feel bad about the things that you do differently, or the things that you struggle with, because there are things that they struggle with that they're just not letting you be aware of.
It goes back to the very beginning part of this conversation. When I'm on this other end and I'm listening to Nicole share her heart about, some of the struggles she's going through with her ADHD right now. And I'm thinking, no, like, I have that struggle. I have that struggle. It's just wrapped differently. Like, it's so crazy how we think we're so different when we're so much alike as humans. And I think I want you to leave this podcast today, those of you listening, and know just how special and wonderful the gifts that you've been given are, and that they are to lead you in a place, maybe you don't know that place quite yet, but they're going to lead you to a place of just, like, magic.
So I want to add to that, this thought that I had earlier, and it was in kind of mentally preparing to have this conversation here today, was that I have a tendency to really overshare. Like, I am like this open book, and sometimes I've always really been that person that it was kind of like the equivalent of like whenever you make a purchase and then you go back and you're like, shit, maybe I shouldn't have made that purchase. But it was like with things that I said, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Why did I say that? Oh my God, people are going to think this. And I would just stress on it forever. And in preparing today for this conversation, I realized maybe this is why, like, maybe this is the place. So while that's not great everywhere, if I wasn't this person who was this open book consistently, I wouldn't be able to be an open book here in this podcast for all of you. And I hope that it helps somebody to feel like they're heard and that they're seen. and that you're not alone, and that you can struggle and still get up every day and try, and use the tools that you have. And if the tools didn't work before, try them again. The little it's like a little alarm box. You can get it on Amazon. It's like got numbers on each side. It looks like a dice, and it's got a timer. It's a timer. And so I've used that. I've used checkbooks, like boxes. I've used planners, and what are the other thing? The time blocking thing. Go to your toolbox and see what you have. And you just kind of go through them every day and see what works for today, because tomorrow it may be something different, and that's okay. And for all the people who aren't neurodivergent that are listening to this and, are still struggling, I still want you to feel seen and heard. And you don't have to have neurodivergence to be able to say that, like, I'm struggling with this and I don't know why, and I don't want to compare myself because it makes me feel like shit. So for all of you, I see you, and I love you, and just go out into the world with kindness and just put your best foot forward, whatever that is for the day.
So you guys, thank you so much for today. We focus a lot on mental health, especially lately and we invite you to our Instagram to deepen this conversation, because it's only just the very beginning. And I can't wait till we bring on guests also, because there's so many people that we have. Oh, I can't wait to share that table with people. So if this conversation interests you and you want to have more with us, go to Instagram. We're at Come Sit With Us on Instagram, and let's connect. Let's hear, let's talk, let's have the conversation. And Nicole, I love that you felt so open today, or so able to share today, because I realize it's not always easy to share about things that we're working through. But I think the most powerful thing we can do, and the reason we started this podcast, was to start these conversations during the time we're having it, not after the time we've had it, because after is too late. Yes. During is when it's raw, and during is when we're unfiltered and we can actually speak deeply from our hearts. So thank you.
Thank you for sitting with us today. And I hope to see you guys on Instagram. Have a good rest of your day.